A lot of the clients that when we first engage them, that's exactly the myth that they believe in, is that we're not big enough. We don't have anything of value. And sometimes it's hard to recognize when you're not involved in that space that you are being watched all the time. Just like, they tell you there's cameras everywhere watching you all the time. There's thieves, there's cyber criminals. They're always on the hunt for a new victim. They don't care how large you are. They don't care how small you are. In fact, a lot of Netranom's customers have come from the smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses that have reached out to us because they've been breached. And you talk about that, that $6 billion plus, that's shared across the spectrum. And what they're doing is autonomous in many cases. They scan the web for open ports on your networks, and they like you talked about, they have tools that scan LinkedIn, different job sites, and find out the names of your employees to scam, what their positions are. The bigger organizations like the banks, the larger banks, Amazon, they have a very robust set of tools and systems in place to protect themselves. And think of a thief that's driving through a neighborhood and he sees 10 houses that have no security and one big nice house that has armed guards, fences, and just cameras, everything to protect that house. They can make plenty of money breaking into the 10 unprotected houses and leave that bigger house alone or for a bigger job later. That's kind of how they do cyber breaches with companies, and that's why it's important for all of us to be aware that we're a target.
Yeah, and what I talk about, the tagline I use is this one on the screen, which is every business is a target. You just might not be big enough for a headline, right? Like a small, like I know I was talking to a managed service provider based out of southern Louisiana and the oil and gas fields down there. And he talked how a business that does basically trailers for the oil fields down there, where they suffered a business email compromise that cost them $500,000 in losses from invoices that got redirected, that they were not able to recover that money from. That small business with 20 to 50 employees, suddenly that owner had to figure out how he was going to make payroll with these things. It wasn't big enough for a headline. Maybe the local news had it, but it wasn't going to make a national story like a MGM or something else being hit. And to your point, right, they know that the large enterprises can purchase the tools or have tooling, and so they try and go after those small businesses.
Well, and Ethan, you touched on the value thing again, and like I said, a lot of the customers say we don't really have anything that valuable or desirable, but most laws, regulations, standards, they're written based on impact to others. And often the value of an organization is the data they hold and the impact that you can have either on the community, your constituents, your customers, and your employees. If you have employees on payroll, you have their personal data, you have the financial information. That is the starting point right there before you even start branching out into those that you serve and where your reputation for your company lies. These are all things that people don't understand or value.